This video is an introduction to PowerSource Tooling. PowerSource Tooling is an application that manages the tooling that's stored in your PowerSource database for Prospector. We'll show you how the tooling data is organized, how to modify the characteristics of a tool, and set or change the feeds and speeds. We'll also add and delete tools from the database, so you can see how that's done. So let's get started. First, we'll go ahead and start in Prospector. This is a part you've been working with all along, and it's a project we made with the material P20 tool steel, and the configuration is plastic injection mold. So let's go to roughing and say let's do a new 3D program. And because it's our first program, we'll create a window around the part. We want to cut the whole part. Go next. We want to do Z-planar with clear to rough it out. Next. And here we are on the tooling page. So, where did all these tools come from? Ball nose, bull nose, end mills. Let's take a look at that. For that, we'll go ahead in the program group for Prospector. We want to start the application called PowerSource Tooling. And this is PowerSource Tooling. This is going to show you all the tools in your PowerSource database. So let's take a look at how this is organized. Firstly, there's two tooling categories. There's inch tools and metric tools. If you have an inch project, you can only access the tools in the inch part of the database. If you have a metric project, you can only use the metric tools. You can't use a metric tool for an inch project. So that's the first level. So if we open the tree, let's open the inch. Look at that. That matches up with what we see in the program list in Prospector. Rough, semi-rough, finish, the different stages of machining. So if we open up the rough category, here's all the different strategies. So we were doing Z-planar with clear, and we also include pocketing in this particular strategy because it's essentially the same style of machining. So if we open him up, there's all the tooling that would be available to us in the rough stage of machining. When I do Z-planar with clear, these are all the tools that will be available to us. So let's go ahead and click on the bull category. PowerSource Tooling will show you all the bull cutters that are available for Z-planar with clear for rough machining. So that's where that list came from on the tooling page when we walked through the wizard. So for any one of these tools, I can go ahead and change any characteristic in here. So for example, if we look at a 3/4 inch cutter, obviously I want to leave the diameter at 3/4 of an inch, corner radius. But say I want to change the length. Any of these characteristics, you just, in this pane, just go ahead and type in the column. And if you don't like that step over, maybe we just want it to be 0.4, you can change those. So there's the step over, step down, how far can the tool descend. If you want to go ahead and say what tool station do I normally use with this cutter, you would fill that in. Cutter length compensation, maybe I use register 5 all the time and register 8 for the radius compensation. So you can change any characteristic you wish for this tool. So when we click on the column here, the very leftmost column, what you'll see open up is the configurations for a particular tool. So it's telling me that I've got two configurations in here. One is for P20, that's the material type. Now if I'm working on a project that has a material type P20 And my spindle speed, this is what my spindle speed and cutting feed rate I want for that. The plunge feed rate, and what's the maximum ramp angle. The same for mild steel. There's another one defined here. What spindle speed would I use for that? What cutting feed rate? And again, I can change these. So if that feed rate's too slow, we need to go faster. For mild steel, I can up that feed rate. So this is where the feeds and speeds get set, and it's based on material type. If we click in this column, what we can do, and then right click, I can go ahead and say, let's delete this configuration. In other words, for this 3/4 inch cutter, I never use it for mild steel. So I'm just going to get rid of that. I don't need that. If you ever need to add a configuration, you can just add one right here as well from the drop-down list. He knows what all the materials are in your PowerSource database. So if I wanted to add this back in, I'd click on mild steel, and I'd put in the appropriate parameters for that material type, and I'm done. So if I made a project with mild steel, then that tool would show up, and these would be the feeds and speeds that it would use if I picked it. Okay, so let's go ahead back up here and look at this 3/4 inch cutter, or maybe better yet, let's go down here and look at these. Here's a 6-inch cutter. Well, I don't even have one of those. So if I want, I can go ahead and say, get rid of that. Just delete that tool. If I wanted to, I can delete all the 6 inches. I'm going to click there to highlight there, then hold down the Shift key, click here to the very last one, then right click and say delete. Now he's warning me these are all going to be gone. You can't undo this, so be careful. Yep. And those guys are done. So let's go through adding a tool to the database. So I just whacked all the 6-inch cutters. The star at the end means this is where you can add one. So let's go ahead and add one. Click on the star, and then what do you want to call it? In the name column, you can call the tool anything you want. It doesn't matter. Just something that you would recognize, so you would know right away, oh yeah, that's what that is. I'll just say it's a Seco 6-125. The diameter is 6. Corner radius 0.125. The length is 8. And step over is 4. Step down, I'm just making this up, 0.1. And I'll leave that all the same. So I've added that tool. Now I want to add configurations for it. So P20, what spindle speed do I want to use for this? Let's say 500, and a cutting feed rate of 20, a plunge feed rate of 10, and ramp angle, that's fine. So I've just added a new tool it's a bowl cutter. It's to be used with Z-planer with clear. It's for inch projects in the rough category. So let's go ahead and do a save here. Now this is saving the changes I've made to the tooling database. You can see what I've done. I've gotten rid of the 6-inch cutters that were in there. I went ahead and deleted those. And then I added the Seco cutter that's 6 inches with a 125 radius. So let's go back to Prospector and say new 3D program. Window around the part. Next, Z-planer with clear. And there's our guy. If I choose him, he's a 6-inch diameter, 125 radius. You can see my feeds and speeds got filled in. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. And you can see that all the other 6-inch cutters were gone, the ones that we went ahead and deleted. So it's kind of that easy. The other cool thing I'm going to show you here, let's make a 7-inch diameter cutter. Notice that Add Tool lit up here. Because the characteristics of this tool aren't in the database, he says, oh, you can add this now if you want. So let's go ahead and say, yeah, let's add that. And let's call it Seco 7X125 and say that's the name. Remember the name column? So he'll go ahead and add that for us. And he's also added it to the list. So if we go back to Prospector Tooling, we open up our inch category, rough, Z-planer with clear and pocketing, the bowl cutter. There he is. There's our 7-inch tool. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. Now, if I wanted to use either of these new tools I defined in any other of the stages of machining, I've got to make sure I put the same tool in for example, if I want to use it for finishing, the finish stage of machining, I'm going to have to open up the finish category and open up Z-planer with clear, bowl cutter, and I'm going to have to add it here. So you go, that's a lot of typing. Well, don't worry about it. Let's go back up to here, click on this guy. Now right click and say copy. That's going to copy the definition of that tool to the clipboard. So now we can go to finish, go to bowl, and because it's a new tool, we'll right click, we'll click on the star and say paste, and that'll paste in that tool. So just because you did one in the rough category, if you're going to use it in the other stages of machining, you're going to want to copy and paste it into those different stages. So as we can see here, all the different, as we organize the tools, we have all the different strategies here. So obviously, if we look at like chamfer milling, the tool types will be different. In chamfer milling, we have chamfer mills, and then we got the flat tip. So these characteristics will be different depending on what the tool is. So obviously for a chamfer, we have a tip diameter, tool length, tool point angle, and so on. And for drilling, same thing. When we go into like, for our taps, threads per inch will be here. So the different types of tools have the appropriate columns, and you just need to fill those out when you add one. There's also, if you use tool assemblies, there's a separate category for these. So you could go ahead and create your own tool assembly for a straight spindle, holder, stepped holder, extension, adapter. And this is handy to do because as you walk through the wizard, you may not want to go ahead and fill out the tool assembly page all the time. That if you were to do, we'll do a new 3D program again. Next, Z-planer with clear. These would show up as being available if you say, yeah, I want to include a spindle. They'll be available, and you can just pick them from a list. So that's handy if you use tool assemblies. So that's it. That's PowerSource Tooling. It's pretty straightforward. This is an introduction to it. There's more to it than meets the eye, but this is enough to get you going because it's one of the first things you're going to do with Prospector is want to populate your database with the tools that you like to use, and that's how you do it. So any questions about this, just email us at support@amt-software.com or call our 800 number. It's all on the website. So thanks, and hope this has been helpful, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.